Hi, I'm Kristen Tetzi. I'm the author of The Age of the Child.
Hi, I'm Lenora. I'm creator of The Bitchy Bookkeeper.
Hi, I'm Isabel, founder and firebrand of the Uprising Spark, and we are the three founding non-mothers of Childfree Girls. Today's episode, we have a very special guest. So Therese Shechter is here with us today. Hi, Therese. It's so good to have you here. So I had the pleasure to meet Therese in New York back in November. And she is currently working on a project, which is a documentary called My So-Called Selfish Life, about childfreeness, basically. So welcome. We're really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited to be hanging out with the Childfree Girls. I just have to tell you. So it's awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
So the first thing I wanted to ask you in general is, we talked about it, but I'm sure Kristen and Lenora would love to hear about what this project is, what you've been working on for the past months.
So this project is a documentary. Yes, it is about child-freeness. It is really looking at the assumption that all women will have kids and want to have kids. It's an assumption that is so deeply ingrained in our society, we can barely think of any alternatives. So the film features a lot of very, very interesting people, as well as politics, history, science, and lots of pop culture, in order to figure out, why do we assume that every woman wants children, and what does that assumption actually mean in the grander scheme of things, and how does it affect all of these different things in our lives? So it's actually the third film of a trilogy, which sounds very fancy, I know, but it's the third feature documentary that they're all sort of on the theme of taking something that is very sacred about womanhood and then completely challenging it and opening it up to some real thought. And why do people think this is true? And, things like that.
Because you're child-free yourself, is there, does this documentary also include your own personal journey?
Yes, although it's not the main story. I'm basically your narrator and tour guide through this world and through a lot of complicated questions. And it does touch on my own experiences here and there, because it drives a lot of the questions I have, why did I tell my mother when I was a teenager that I wasn't going to have any kids? And then why, when I was 35, did I break up with my boyfriend because our relationship wasn't moving towards marriage and kids? Yeah. Weird. So, it's, so there are things like that. So we do start a little bit with me, but I'm really your guide, and I sort of take you through to meet a lot of interesting people and just chew on some complicated ideas and make them hopefully fun and entertaining as we go through, because this is such a taboo subject. I did not even know what I was in for when I started this film, how taboo it is. So it makes it very interesting.
Have you received any hate mail or just mean messages as a result of this? Have people responded negatively?
I honestly get the meanest messages from child-free people who want to, how do I put this? They are mad that I'm not letting them say all kinds of horrendous things in our social media. And we have a policy that it's a respectful conversation. We're really not here to insult, denigrate, make fun of parents and kids. And that's really not why we're here. And sometimes when, that is actually, which is really interesting. There are a lot of places on the internet where you can have at it and you can say whatever you want. Our sites aren't that place. So it's a really interesting thing. But a friend of mine who's a parent pointed out to me that she thought that parents were much meaner to other parents than they ever were to child-free people. So I don't know what the dynamic is there. So I haven't gotten a lot of real hate mail. I have been sort of mischaracterized, like people have written about me and they have really mischaracterized my work or, what I believe in, things like that. That happens quite a bit.
Is that because possibly these certain child-free people are spewing hate towards parents? Do you think they then lump you in because maybe they've seen like a child-free Reddit or they've seen, other things where it's just a nasty meme? Because we kind of have that policy too. We keep ours, we want a conversation, but we don't tolerate hate towards other groups like parents and such. So do you think they just assume that you're child-free, you hate kids, you hate people that have kids?
I think that anyone who identifies as child-free and who is especially more in the public eye will definitely, if somebody doesn't like what you're saying, they will like find sort of the most egregious examples of your larger group and just put it all on you because that's easy and it pushes buttons. And like nuance, complexity, that's much harder. So I think that does happen. I think several people, like on the subject of antinatalism, a lot of people have just sort of called me an antinatalist without, I think, a full understanding of what that word means. But they thought it was some sort of like insult, or indictment. And so that happens a bit. I don't consider myself an antinatalist, but, they're using that word not in the way that they think it means.
Right. It's like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not one.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not, it's a really specific philosophy. And I think that if we're going to take these conversations seriously, I think that we should have an understanding of where everyone is coming from. I think that's important. But people use that word as a weapon. And I find that really interesting too. There was just recently an article on a British website that pulled all of these phrases from the description of the film to prove that I was an antinatalist. It's like somebody accuses you of being a lesbian, right? Because when I was working on a feminism film, people were constantly accusing me of being a lesbian. And I'm like, you can call, I'm not, but you can call me a lesbian if you want. It's like not really like an insult or anything.
Yeah.
But I think it's weird. And this is how some people operate.
But you showed me, this I didn't tell the girls, but your business card has something really funny printed on it.
Oh, my regular Trixie Films business card. Oh yeah, that was awesome. So my last big documentary was called How to Lose Your Virginity. And it was about the myths and misogyny around virginity culture and how we talk about female sexuality. And this one conservative blogger wrote about me and the film and something I had written. And she called me a brazen advocate of slut culture of the pseudo-feminist left.
That's a lot.
That is a lot. Wow.
It's a lot. And I thought that is the most awesome thing anyone has ever written about me, and I put it on my business card.
When I read that, I was cracking up. I was like, what is this? It's so funny.
You should put that on the bar across your screen in editing.
Yeah, seriously. I do hope that, people continue to say things like that because I want people to know what I'm working on. And, the more known your work is, the more people are going to come out of the woodwork and, say whatever they want. So I think that's sort of a symptom of just becoming more recognized in the work. And I think that's ultimately actually a good thing. And I'll have to make new business cards one day. So maybe.
Well, they took the time to write about you. So that's awesome.
That's how I feel. Like you took the time to do this call and put all of these words together in a sentence. So thank you.
Doesn't that just show that it triggers people? When you bring up this topic, whether it's child freeness or, losing your virginity, that and what in your thought process on that or what you're sharing with us, it triggers, you find out more about the person who's writing, who's responding than what you're assuming people are thinking about you.
I think some of this stuff is triggering in some ways, and it is taboo in some ways, and it is challenging things that people believe are fundamental truths, which actually aren't. And the problem with believing certain things are fundamental truths is other people suffer because of it. So, shaking up people's beliefs is not necessarily a bad thing. It happens. I also have bad experiences when I go to like bridal showers and I tell the table of 10 women what I'm working on, and either there are people near me who are like, oh my God, that's awesome. I'm so glad you're working on this. And other people who just stare at me because they can't even think of what is the next sentence after. No, actually, I don't have any kids and I don't want any kids. And I'm making a movie about it. Silence. Nothing. So.
And it's like like part of what this is exploring one of the ideas, which is what is the female identity if it has nothing to do with motherhood.
Yeah.
And so that would explain maybe their short circuiting about that. But I also wonder, I was looking at that question and I was thinking, okay, so what is the female identity beyond or excluding motherhood? And in order to even try to come up with an answer, I had to first ask, okay, well, what's the male identity? And we know what the stereotypical male identity is, and that's strong, won't cry, breadwinner, whatever. Is there a real male or female identity, and should there be? Take away motherhood, should there be a female identity? Because it seems like whatever men have is also damaging it with its limitations.
Right. I mean, I think that some of the many problems in our world come from like gender essentialism, saying there's only one right way to be a woman, there's only one right way to be a man. I suppose it's easier to organize your world when everyone has like a very specific role and they can't deviate from that, but I don't think it's good for humans. So yeah, I don't think there is one. I think that the progress of society might be exploring all the different ways we can be, whether we're men or women or both or neither, that, just sort of pushing our imaginations to think of like, what more can we be, or what other things can we be if we don't want to be that thing that people are telling us we're supposed to be? And can we find space and support to do that? So I don't think there is one female identity, except in the sort of popular imagination, which is inextricably linked to motherhood.
One of the things that we talked about was your research. One of the things that shocked me was that you had found information about forced sterilizations in the United States. Mm-hmm. And that to me was like, what the fuck? Like, seriously? And then the question I wanted to ask you was, what was the thing or the things that shocked you the most when you were doing all the research for your documentary?
Well, I think, the extent of like reproductive oppression in the U.S. for, hundreds of years is shocking. And you have to sort of deal with the enormity of this, that the government, academics, doctors, social do-gooders all thought that it was a really good idea to decide which groups were better than others, try to force them to have babies, and everyone else do whatever they could to prevent them from having babies. It was called eugenics more than 100 years ago. It was a very broadly embraced belief that you could create a better race of human if everyone was basically white Northern European. And it has gone on. The Germans, the Nazis, adopted a lot of these ideas in the 30s, and we know where that went, but they did get their inspiration from the United States. And the eugenics program was shut down shortly after that in the US, but it really never stopped. And we have had forced or coerced sterilization as recently as, just a couple of years ago. Actually, some people in Oklahoma were promised lighter jail sentences if they agreed to be sterilized.
Oh my God.
So it's a really ugly history. And there are a lot of things about the history of this country and also Canada. I am actually from Canada. Hi, fellow Canadian. Canada too. Canada has a long history of sterilization of First Nations women, just as the U.S. does. I just read something where they estimated that a full 25% of Native American women were sterilized in the 1960s and 70s.
Is that during, we just found the reconciliation that all came out, in the last while. Was that part of that whole debacle?
The figure that I was citing is an American figure, so I don't know the statistics for Canada, but I think part of all of the issues that First Nations folks had to deal with in Canada, and they're just coming out sort of now. Forced and coerced sterilization is part of that. There have actually been some news reports out of Saskatchewan about coerced sterilization. And what I mean by that is that it's not like somebody is like grabbing you and putting you under and making you have a tubal ligation or hysterectomy against your will or without your knowledge, because that happened a lot. But this is more like if you want a better jail sentence, or if you want to stay on your welfare program, or, things like that. And some things were happening in Saskatchewan quite recently where women were getting sterilization procedures done that they were not aware of.
There was an article about that. Someone is suing the government, Native women. I didn't, I have to Google that because I saw it, didn't even put it together that was happening, but I saw something recently on that here.
It's possible. And, I think that is sort of the bigger issue about talking about being child-free. I think that I feel like when you're talking about the right and ability to choose not to have children, it's really a larger right and ability to control your own reproduction, right? Whatever choice you make, the right not to be reproductively oppressed, to not have access to contraception or birth control, but also not to be coerced or forced into getting sterilized. There's a larger reproductive justice movement in the United States, which also takes into account good prenatal care and safe environments for parents and children. So it's a much larger thing where women, or people with uteruses, I should probably say, where they're able to make their own choices about their bodies and their reproduction in a safe, informed, and in the way that they want. So I think that's the larger conversation. And I think, if I can just stay on my soapbox for another minute, I do think that those of us who feel like one important reproductive right is the right to be sterilized if you want to be. I think that we should also acknowledge that there are other people that we should also be fighting for. If we believe in the right to control our own bodies and reproduction, we should be pro-choice, because we should fight for that right for everyone. And that's not always an easy conversation to have, but it is all part of it. All of the ways we control our own bodies and reproduction, I think we should be out there fighting for.
What do you say then to somebody who is child-free and pro-life, who would then just might argue something like, well, they do have the choice, and that choice is to abstain from any kind of reproductive sex. If they don't want to have a child, they can just avoid getting pregnant altogether. They have technically that choice.
Right. They have the choice to abstain if they are willing to live a life where they never have sex, when they never have intercourse, never get raped, never get assaulted, never experience incest, all of these things. Sure. I think that that's a pretty cruel world view, where you say, just keep your knees together. Basically, just deny yourself what other people have the right to do, and stop bothering us with this. I think that you should be able to decide what happens to your own body, but don't impose your stuff on other people if they don't want it. I'm not forcing anyone to get an abortion. So that kind of stuff comes up a lot. And I think it's a very privileged place to start from, to say that. Just don't have sex. I think it all comes down to we need the right to control our bodies, and we need the right to decide not to have children if we don't want to have children. It's not like getting a pimple on your face, you know? It's a big deal to bring a child into this world. So, yeah, I mean, basically.
That makes me think, I know about men's rights activists. I know they exist, and I've always thought of them as very toxically masculine, sexist, basically just your old school, who kind of operate under the guise of wanting, equal rights when it comes to stuff like custody issues. They don't want women to be assumed to be the automatic nurturers or caretakers or whatever, and they should get to have their kids too. As if they've completely forgotten the history of all of that belonging to men, when the rule of thumb applied. So I read one of the interviews you did, and you talked about, I think it was in Salon, and you said that, in gathering, all these people who come together, who have started coming out online to talk about being child-free, one of these groups is child-free men's rights activists. Yeah. And that to me is just so oxymoronic unless I have no idea what they are. Like, I can't imagine men's rights activists who probably believe a woman's place is somewhere. I guess in that case, we would just be the blow up dolls that don't procreate and that they can utilize. I don't get it.
I think that they're kind of an overlap with this group called Men Going Their Own Way. Who are men who have allegedly relinquished the female gender. They're done. They don't need women. They're leaving. Except that they are relentlessly writing and making videos about women.
Are they going to an island far away? Maybe
I know, we could take up a collection. And there's an overlap with child-free men who are. I'm sure there are there are lots of very cool, awesome child-free men, but this specific men's rights activist child-free group, I think, was an overlap with them. We don't want anything to do with women and children and all of that stuff. Actually, there's this amazing blog called We Hunted the Mammoth. If anyone is interested in every toxic masculinity group out there, including neo-Nazis and
incels,
going their own way, and the incels. Oh my God, How to Lose Your Virginity. I got to know a lot of incels. We Hunted the Mammoth. It's such a fantastic blog, and it covers all of this. It's very funny and horrifying. So I just want to do a little plug for David Futrell, who does that blog. MGTOWs. That's what they call them. MGTOWs. Yeah.
I want to check that out. That sounds really, really interesting. It sounds like somewhere you could just spend a whole day.
You can get lost in it. They can also completely ruin your day too. It just depends what David's writing about. But it's fascinating. And I think that one of the really big things you realize is all of these groups are all interrelated. They're all part of a larger male supremacy kind of organization, loosely organized, which is very chilling.
Have you heard from incels regarding the so-called selfish life?
No. Okay. When I was making How to Lose Your Virginity, I did get to know some folks who were almost the founders of the incel, the involuntarily celibate movement. And actually wrote an article about this. The original founding of that movement was actually fairly egalitarian, men and women who had a lot of trouble forming relationships and forming sexual relationships. And they were sort of helping each other. There were all these chat rooms. And at some point it turned very toxic. I think I wrote about it when one of the first mass shootings happened. So yeah, the early incels are really interesting and not at all like what it's become. But again, I think it was infected with the same kind of stuff that all the male supremacy stuff is infected with. I think that's touched a lot of different things.
Do you think this is kind of happening actually in the child-free community? I am myself fairly new to it publicly. So, we have the negative child-free groups like Facebook and a lot of places where there is a lot of negativity of child-free people towards parents and kids and that sort of thing. And yet then there are some of us who are trying to, entertain and educate and make things that with a more upbeat, positive attitude. We're like, here we are to help people along in their journey. I don't know how the child-free community got started, to be honest. So I don't know if it started out was it a way of spewing all of the frustrations together and then some positivity came out of it where now people are comfortable speaking out and helping others? Or was it the reverse? Or do we know? I mean, I'm not involved in a lot of the Facebook groups or Reddit at all. Doing this now, I'm becoming more aware that that's out there, but I don't know the longer history of it.
Do you mean like online child-free?
Online.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So my impression is, first of all, that everything that's going on online has a component of users who are just angry, nasty people. I mean, I think no matter what community you're in online, any community at all, even the rabbit lovers community who are mad at the cat lovers, I don't know. There's always this. It's a place for people to really vent and do it often anonymously. That's everywhere. So whatever topic you're talking about, the people like the pie lovers who hate the cake lovers, and there are all these slang terms for people who like cake. I don't know. So I think that's just the nature of the internet. But I do think that the earliest groups were sort of like when I was talking about the incels. I think the earliest groups were ways for people to find each other. Child-free people before social media would have been very isolated, feeling like freaks in their communities, feeling like the only people that felt that way. And of course, there are a lot of other groups that this was happening to as well, obviously. And I think that going online was a way for child-free people to just find each other and talk about what they were going through and create these communities of support or commiseration or, bitching about something too. Sure, that's all part of it. But like everything on the internet, it goes in a lot of different directions. So I don't know the history. I know that child-free is not a dirty word, which I think is out of Toronto. She launched that in 2012, which is one of the earlier ones, but I could be wrong about that. There could have been online groups since like Facebook and Reddit existed.
But that's an example of a positive one, though. Child-free is not a dirty word. Is very, very encouraging and supportive.
Yeah, totally. I think with everything on the internet, you're going to get groups that are really very like positive, and other groups that people are there just to delight in, saying nasty things and coming up with nasty slang and venting all of their id, all over the place. And again, I think that's with everything. So I don't know the genesis of these groups. I know that like some of the more like sort of angry and insulting groups have spawned more respectful groups out of them by people who didn't want to hang with in that sort of environment. But other people enjoy it. I mean, look, it's the internet is for all of us. We have to find the place where we're comfortable.
Yeah, but it really definitely can get very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
I think I have been called by child-free people a breeder pleaser.
Breeder pleaser. Me too.
Yay!
I lucked out. I have not had that yet. I've never even heard of that. Okay,
you need to do is not insult a parent.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe it's because I'm the bitchy bookkeeper, so I'm not like a breeder. I've never heard of that before.
Really?
That's okay. I don't need it.
If you're at all fair to parents, or if you don't call children crotch fruit or crotch goblins or whatever, then you're a breeder pleaser because you're trying to not offend parents, and that's bad.
Yeah.
I have not come across that at all.
Oh, I've definitely, yes.
Oh. Okay.
I was going to ask you if you had, because I was going to guess that you had been called that because, you were trying to be respectful and you're not interested in attacking parents or children. So I was thinking she's a breeder pleaser for sure.
Yeah, I've been called a breeder pleaser. I just think that our issues aren't largely with other women. For example, I think our issues are with the patriarchy and capitalism and pronatalism and nationalism, and those are abstract, foes to have, but I don't have a beef with a specific person sitting next to me. I have a beef with these systems of society and how they have grown up around us to make us believe things that aren't true. And in some of the ways that, we catalog all the bingos, all the things people say to us that they believe are absolutely true, which is you're going to die alone, or no one will ever love you, or whatever. Those grow out of those belief systems that have been put in place for a reason, to keep us in a specific place. I mean, that's what I want to rail against. I'm not as interested in talking about how horrible, every parent and child is. Although I have met horrible parents and horrible children.
I mean, they're people.
Out there. Yeah, they're people. But that's not my main priority. It's not our Facebook page's main priority either. And we have parents on the page, and parents contribute to conversations. And I'm very happy we have parents there, because they do bring certain points of view, and they understand where they are, and they're very respectful of who this group is. And they're welcome if they want to contribute to the conversation. And sometimes where people pick up that there's a parent in the comment stream, all of a sudden it's like, why are you here? This is a child-free page. And it's like, hold on.
We don't need the parents' perspective. I've seen that in online child-free forums. There was a parent who came into one of them who was really genuinely, I thought, saying, hey, if you have any questions about this, or if there's anything, I'm really interested in what you guys are doing, and I'm interested in being a parent perspective if you're open to that. This person got so much crap, and I was just like, why does there have to be so much animosity? This is just this person's children, unless you're an antinatalist or unless you know for a fact he's abusing his children, has nothing to do with your life or you. I mean, he's not a negative. I didn't get the lack of interest in being open-minded and friendly and gracious and compassionate.
Yeah, I mean, we've had parents stumble onto the My So-Called Selfish Life Facebook page by accident, not really knowing where they were commenting. And I think people were talking about baby showers and how people don't really like going to baby showers and things like that for various reasons. And this one woman jumped on and said, oh, we love baby showers and we love gender reveal parties, and I can't wait till I have a child and I can do a gender reveal party for them. Oh my God. So I had to very gently message them and say, I just wanted to make you aware that you're in a group for people who don't actually want children. So this is probably not the right conversation thread for this group. Just like, thank you for letting me know kind of thing. But you could see people like waiting to pounce to tell her,
We got an email from somebody who was interested coming in our show as a guest. And she wrote like, I'm all about child-free. I really love the time when my kids are at school and I'm by myself at home. And we're like, we don't think you're a right fit, but thank you for your interest, But it was, people get confused.
Yeah, I really, I get it. The kids aren't home. It's nice and quiet. Yeah. I certainly get why she likes that situation. But yeah, it's really hard because I think that the child-free community has really taken a lot of shit in so many ways. And we're just kind of finding our space now and finding our voices, and and we sit on the shoulders of people who have been active in this for 20 years, 40 years. Marsha Drett Davis, who was on 60 Minutes and as a child-free person in the 70s and then lost her job. So we're now at a point where, it's a lot safer to talk about this stuff now. But we're still kind of feeling out our space and how we want to talk about it. And it's not always going to work. But again, I think that's sort of with everything.
I have one last question for you. I think one of the people, a group of people I think are most important to reach are girls who are just entering sexual age or relationship age, and who are probably most impressionable. And I just, and a lot of them probably feel, depending on where they live and what kind of environments they're in, a lot of them probably feel like this future is inevitable. This having children and marriage and all that is inevitable. And they might feel like there is no way out, as you did at one time. Like you felt eventually you were going to have kids, so you better live now before that happens. Right. How can they be reached, or more easily? Maybe the easier question is, what would you say if any one of them were watching right now? What would you say to them to persuade them to not be afraid, or to let them know that they can actually choose their own, destiny path?
I mean, I think I would say, in fact, you can choose your own destiny and path. Like, it may not be easy, and people may give you a hard time about it. And you may be on the outs with your family. And these are all very, very true things. But at the end of the day, it's your life. And there is a lot of support out there for either trying to figure out what you want, or if you have figured out what you want, to support you in that decision. I am always running into people who aren't aware of any online presence of the child-free community, or even of conversations about whether or not to become parents and what that means and what you should think about. Like, they don't know this exists. So I would definitely point them. We have a resources page on my So-Called Selfish Life website. We have a lot of cool things. Actually, we have like an online comic about like what is child-free, and child-free is a legitimate choice. And it's like a primer, like for somebody if they're like, what is this thing? And it's like, oh, go read our comic, because it'll lay it all out for you. I think I would just say that it's your life, and you have the right to decide what's best for you, like what works best for you. And if you make a decision and you don't feel like it's the right decision, that's okay too, because you've learned something and you can choose something else. So just even knowing that you have a choice is a really big thing, and knowing that it might be hard, but ultimately it's worth it.
That's the best way to wrap up our interview, unfortunately, because we don't have a lot of time. But it was such a pleasure having you in our show, Therese. Thank you so much. You're always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
When should we expect your documentary to come out?
Well, we are editing, as I said, very hard. So my So-Called Selfish Life is in the editing phase right now. We're hoping to have it done in 2020. What happens with the life of a documentary is once it's done, you're sending it to film festivals, and then you sort of figure out where you're going to premiere. And so we're showing it in film festivals around the country, which may not start until 2021 because of the way things are timed. So that's kind of the path of it. So hopefully we'll be able to say we are all done and now doing the great work of getting it out to everybody sometime mid next year. I'll also put in a plug for the fact that we are still fundraising so we can finish the film. And if anybody wants to support the film or even just learn more about it, it's myselfishlife.com.
Yeah.
And we basically run on individual donations, like 750 of them or something at this point. So.
Okay, well, we're going to leave you guys all the links in our description so you can check out Therese's website of, my so-called Selfish Life, and then also check out her other previous documentaries, Trixie Films page, right? And so you can also send us emails to childfreegirls@gmail.com You can comment below this video. We are in every single social platform there is out there. I think almost. We're on TikTok. Like, I didn't even know what TikTok was until like a month ago. But we're mainly in Facebook and Instagram, so you can also follow us there. And thank you so much for tuning in.
As a human being, do you identify as a feminist? What are your feelings about the word feminist? And if you don't identify as feminist, why not?